everyone, I'm Rachel and I'm the new horticulturist here at the Highlands Biological Station. I thought that I would give you all a little introduction about me. So I'm from Asheville, North Carolina, and as Paige mentioned in the earlier introduction video, I have a brief history with environmental education, which is how I came around to the horticulture field. I've gotten the chance to work at botanical gardens up and down the East Coast and did some work abroad as well, but I'm really excited to be here at the biological station and to be giving you all the tour for February. Okay, so since I'm pretty new to the garden still and it's February, so things are still pretty quiet, I thought that I would just use this opportunity to talk about some of the things that I've noticed and some of the plants that I've been enjoying and I thought were of interest. And the first one is this, which is Magnolia Tripetala. It's otherwise known as the umbrella magnolia or umbrella tree. It's a deciduous magnolia, obviously, and it typically, you'll find it in our region in these very moist cove areas. So Magnolia Tripetala in cultivation is, can get quite tall, but, in its native populations or in its normal range, it's typically more of an understory tree. And it also prefers really moist soils, so you'll find it in moist cove areas again. And its natural range here in cultivation, it's got a lot of open space. It's got a lot of open air. But again, be on the lookout for this in springtime. It's a beautiful magnolia. The leaves, in and of themselves, are really striking. Another winter feature that I think is very interesting are these winter terminal buds. And they're about a couple of inches, and the Magnolia Macrophylla also has these very profound, very significant winter buds that of course will, flesh out in springtime. But I just think that's a very interesting thing to observe. Another feature to note are these very significant leaf scars, which demonstrate that this magnolia has almost a whorl-like leaf arrangement. And the bark as well, this is more what I'm focusing on now is part of a new growth. Obviously, if you look here at these older trunks, they are much more weathered, but it has a very interesting gray bark that's quite smooth, again, in some of the newer growth areas. And it is a multi-stemmed tree, a multi-trunked tree, which is an interesting feature about this particular magnolia species. All right, so now that we've taken that tour of Magnolia Tripetala, we can head down into the botanical garden. As I mentioned earlier, we've gotten a lot of rain so far, and the temperatures have been pretty mild compared to the past few weeks, which is a very welcomed change. Oh, I see a red squirrel off in the distance. Still got the ground's still quite wet from the rain that we had last night. And they're calling for more rain later on, so we shall see. Got some evergreen ferns, and we are keeping an eye out for frog breeding in the bog. They like very shallow pools of water where they'll lay their eggs. I haven't seen any recently, but maybe in next month's garden tour we'll get to showcase some of those. But be on the lookout if you see any sort of shallow pools when you're here visiting the botanical garden. Look and see if you see some little, they're kind of slimy and black, but those are the eggs that'll, hatch later on in spring. Things on the boardwalk are looking good. So nice and quiet. We got some rain the other day, so the garden's a little wet. Lots of leucothoi. This piece is always interesting to talk about. So this tree obviously was downed in a storm, and what's interesting is we've kept it for the most part because these piles of brush and especially down farther at the creek help to create habitat for other animals and fish as well. This is a fun piece. So, as Paige mentioned in one of her earlier videos, I believe it was last month's, but there are these piles of pine cones, or the pine cone leftovers, if you will, that squirrels have gone through and eaten, kind of like a corn cob. And it's nice because squirrels have this nice perch here on this stump, and they've just left the remnants right there. We're just headed along the trail here, going towards Mary's garden and the Falls Loop Trail. we're gonna work our way up to Mary's garden to talk about some things you can do right now in your garden. Got a nice patch of Oconee bells here. And you'll notice that these leaves are kind of a purple color, and that's due to the presence of anthocyanins, which are pigments present in the leaves that will help to make the plant kind of red or blue or even purple. And that's what you're seeing here, is this kind of reflection, and it varies depending on pH and sun exposure as well. Oh, I see we have more pine cones all along the trail here. This area in the botanical garden is a really great example of a cove. So we've got these rhododendrons here, and earlier up on the trail there was a Fraser magnolia, which is common in cove forest types. The presence of these hemlocks above us and the sort of sloped landscape we just walked down are also indicators that this is a cove forest type. Something that I wanted to note is just this tree here, this stump rather, that was downed in a storm. I can only assume it was before my time, but the rain has really brought out these really rich colors, and you can see there's these dark reds and browns and this sort of black streak here as well. I just think it's very beautiful, and just with my naked eye I can see a few tiny little spiders, and I can see there's perhaps a termite hole, and it's not a plant, but it's certainly something that still brings a lot of value to other living things even past its life. And as I touched on earlier, it's always a good idea, if you can, right, and if it's safe, to kind of leave these downed tree limbs or trunks or what have you, so that they can decay and have that natural process. And other insects and animals can benefit from it. All right, and we're here at Mary's garden. This area has a lot of perennials, a lot of sun-loving perennials. I think this pink shell azalea, Rhododendron vasii, is really beautiful. I'm just noticing these really bright pink buds here. Some of these fuller ones as well. This azalea is in the Ericaceae family, or the heath family, which plants in this family are acid loving, so they typically like acidic soils. And this pink shell azalea in particular is one that you can find in very acidic wet soils, as you can see right here next to the stream. And we've also got lots of, again, as I mentioned, lots of perennials. Liatris, we've got fire pink, Silene virginica. We've got Rudbeckia La Sonata. Lots of different sun-loving perennials. And you'll notice that, everything's still kind of as it was in the fall. And that's really the intention, is to allow these plants to live out their full cycle. And in a couple of weeks, really looking towards March, I will come in and cut everything back and allow the new flush of growth to come through for the new year. But in that time, it's good to leave these perennial stems, because a lot of them are hollow and they can provide a good nesting site, or even, a place where insects can lay their eggs. And so if you're looking to help out the pollinators in your garden at home, that's really what I would encourage you all to do. And not to mention, we've got lots of seed heads around here as well. And of course, the birds are appreciative of those, and that's a great way to help out pollinators as well. We've got some beautiful yellow root here. And I hope that all of you will be able to stop by in spring once everything has leafed out. All right. I noticed some birds, some mallard ducks earlier on the pond, which I thought was a nice surprise early in the morning. We had quite a bit of fog as well, but things are looking nice over here, very cool. this is a nice plant to highlight. This is Hydrangea Regatta, and this is obviously a deciduous shrub. And this particular hydrangea, the common name is snowy hydrangea. I've also heard it referred to as the silverleaf hydrangea, and that is because when it leaves out, there are these very striking silver, almost white leaves on the underside, and that's where the common name comes from. And botanically it's referred to as a lace-cap hydrangea, which simply means that the flowers, the fertile flowers themselves, are up at the top here, and then these papery white flowers, what we would sort of think of as flowers, are actually bracts, which are there to sort of entice pollinators and just make it look more attractive. So they'll come to this particular flower. And botanically, it's called an umbel, and that just sort of means that you've got this dome shape. And it's nice because, I mean, with all hydrangea species, you've got these leftovers here that hang around and add a nice little bit of winter interest. The snowy hydrangea also has a very nice bark as well. And there's some flaky parts here which you can see. And this particular species is native to the Appalachian region, and it likes much more sheltered spaces and, again, shadier and moist soils as well. But this is a wonderful addition. This area has another wonderful magnolia, which I won't discuss at length now. I'll probably save it for another tour, but this is the big leaf magnolia, Magnolia Macrophylla. This is similar to Magnolia Tripetala, which I discussed earlier, in that it also has these very significant leaf scars, which you can see, and these terminal winter buds as well. Hopefully you all can see those. And yeah, this is a much smaller specimen. They do get obviously a lot bigger, but this is another one that I think is a really beautiful tree, and I'll leave it at that and save more for the next tour. And that wraps up this month's A Garden in Every Season tour. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Let us know in the comments if you have any questions, and I hope you all can make it out to the Highlands Biological Station very soon.